There it is.
Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Fat Man Beyond. We call it Black Man Beyond, but only half of us is a black man. So we're absorbing the entirety of the Fat Man universe. I am Marc Bernardin. As you can tell, again, Kevin Smith is if you are familiar with the world of Kevin Smith, as I'm assuming all of you are because you're here, and you must have gotten some email notification that we were going live. You know then that Kevin is on the Dogma World Tour, the Resurrection Tour, and will be until I think it's the end of May. So we may get him, we may not. He may zoom in at some point unbidden, like the Joker, or more often than not, we will not have him until the beginning of June. But much like last week, it was imperative that we talk about sinners. And so I roped in the great and wonderful Akela Cooper to come in and chat with me about that. Today was like, we got to talk about Star Wars. We gotta talk about the first three episodes of Andor. I think JC has seen further than that. Got to talk about the Star Wars Celebration news. We got to talk about the Light and Magic season 2 drop. And then some assorted and sundry news. But to do all of those things, who better to talk Star Wars with than the owner of the Scum and Villainy Cantina, which has nothing to do with Star Wars. But
every nerd property but Star Wars is represented at Scum and Villainy.
I was in there earlier this week. What is today? Today's Monday. So I was in there on Monday with some coworkers who had the best time.
Oh, good.
Yeah, good. They're all nerds, including one brought her 2-year-old son, whose favorite piece of music in the world is John Williams' March, is what this kid says. And all he wants is the Imperial March all day long. But yeah, everybody had blast. Although, I had to explain to them, this is not a Star Wars bar. It might look like it in places, but it is not. Mm-hmm. It is general science fiction nerd eatery.
My daughter's favorite tune for a while was Raiders March. And wherever we went and it would play, and I'm sure I've told the story in the podcast before, but she'd go, "Oh my God, it's the bar song. It's the song we listened to at the bar." And everybody looks and is like, "Why are you bringing your 2-year-old to a bar often enough that she recognizes the music they play?"
That's amazing. Yeah. She was like, "Can I bring a baby to the bar?" I'm like, "Well, technically," and gave her the spiel.
Yeah, it's a restaurant.
It's a restaurant. It's a restaurant that also serves booze, like every restaurant does. And so she was ultimately fine with it. The kid, 2 years old, there's a lot of audiovisual stimuli in that bar for a 2-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
He hung longer than anybody thought because there's also tater tots, which who are we kidding? That gets me to stay at a bar longer than I want. So, but
yeah, it's amazing how tater tots just are that thing. They're just French fries, but in nugget form, and it just changes the game.
It's the great equalizer. If you are of a certain age, and that age is any age, then you would kind of infinitely prefer a tater tot to a French fry, mostly because of the rarity factor. Like, you just don't encounter tater tots in the world that much. So
yeah,
when it's
we charge more for tater tots too.
I mean,
French
you
fries
could charge a lot more, and I think people would still be willing to pay.
Yeah, it's wild. I think our tater tots are, for plain tater tots, it's $8. For plain French fries, it's $6, and it's coming from the same root out of the ground. But yeah.
I mean, I'm gainfully employed, but you could tell me they were $15, and I would.
Yeah, we do charge more. We have the Parmesan truffle atots. Mm-hmm. And the fully loaded Vader tots, which are significantly more expensive, but you get all sorts of stuff on those. So,
yeah, it's a lot of stuff. But hey, you know what? Fuck it, man. It's tots. and time to make everything better. Um, Speaking of foodstuffs, or should we do it the other way? Which ad read should we do
Oh,
first?
I think we need to talk about summer wear and shorts.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna dive into this first. It's not as good a segue, but sometimes this shit just kind of happens this way. But hey, you know what? It's also called Chubbies, which you also get if you eat too many tots.
There we go.
There we go. We did it. Did it, you guys. Listen, spring is pretty much here. So it's time to shake off those heavy layers and bust out those beautiful thighs, gentlemen. Whether you're on spring break, heading to a backyard barbecue, playing a round of golf, or delivering a podcast ad read, Chubbies has the styles for any spring occasion. With a variety of bright and comfortable polos and high quality thigh exposing shorts, Chubbies has the styles to fit whatever spring vibe you're going for. You're taking that well deserved vacation, Chubbies? Well, man, there's a punctuation missing there. Taking that well-deserved vacation? Question mark. Chubby says the ultimate training shorts for you. Looking for a more casual, comfortable fit for an outdoor brunch or a walk in the park? Question mark. Chubby's original shorts gives you that classic feel with a modern look. And get this, they've even got everywhere shorts designed for performance and casual vibes. At the same time, maybe miracles are possible. Let's face it, you deserve a wardrobe upgrade for springtime. So to sweeten the deal, for a limited time, Chubbies is giving our listeners 20% off our order with the exclusive code BEYOND at chubbiesshorts.com. Listen, unmatched comfort and style with Chubbies' original stretch shorts, the performance polos, man, cooking with gas, soft, stretchy, breathable fabric. Polos are built to kick back, turn up, chill out, party down, and some other fifth direction based metaphor. And this wouldn't be an ad read if we didn't mention Chubby's classic line swim collection. Without hyperbole, the absolute top of the men's swimwear game. Sometimes when I see the word hyperbole, I want to say hyperbole. And it's always like a second before my brain kicks in to remember hyperbole.
Which also, hyperbolic is a word. So it falls dangerously close.
It's just enough to make you like pause and maybe trip in the middle of a sentence. But I think we got there, everybody. We got there. So listen, whether you're getting dressed for your workday, a workout, or a weekend getaway, Chubbies has you covered. For a limited time, Chubbies is giving our viewers 20% off their order with our code BEYOND at chubbiesshorts.com. That's code BEYOND, BEYOND, at CHUBBIESSHORTS.com. Support our show and tell them we sent you. Don't blend in with the crowd. Stand out with Chubbies. Thank you, Chubbies, for supporting this and other of our podcasts.
Do you have a swimming pool at your house?
You have a swimming pool at my house.
I do too. I feel like I could use some Chubbies for the pool this summer.
Ooh.
The kid is finally old enough to have like beaucoup number of friends, and she's already talking about inviting them all over to go swimming this summer. And I feel like the Chubbies will help. I feel like I need them.
I mean, you got the good thighs, so you got to show them off. And you also can't be like the weird dad who's like just wearing the like super like Speedos.
Yeah, we did. Once upon a time, we had a party at the house, a summer like party for employees, and one of the employees thought they were funny and they wore a Speedo to the pool party at like the work pool party. And it was a bold choice.
I mean, I worked at Playboy once and nobody wore Speedo. Because nobody fucking needs that.
Yeah. Well, something happened there. YouTube's being people are yelling about multiple YouTube streams and things like that. We'll set it up correctly. This is a YouTube bug. He's working on it.
Yeah. Well, all the kinks will be worked out. If you're watching live, we'll figure it. If you're not watching live, you'll never know.
Yeah. Except that we talked about it.
Except we talked about it, but then it's like we talked about a thing that you've never seen, like Snuffleupagus. So I think we'll be fine at the
All
end
the
of it.
shitty adults in Sesame Street for years didn't believe Big Bird. Didn't believe him. Thought he was a liar.
Yeah,
Patronized him. It just made him feel like a
it is
shitty
such a
bird.
it's such a weird storytelling choice to be like, and I get it because you wanted, Big Bird to have something for himself, but everybody to just ridicule him for decades. Like, what are you talking about, Bird? There's no fucking snuffleupagus. I swear. Like they're gaslighting into
Yep.
trying to believe. Maybe that's what it was. It was very early lesson in gaslighting from the good folks at Children's Television.
And most kids don't know what we're talking about because PBS has no more funding to support WTTW, so or to
Yeah,
support Children's Television Network, right?
yeah.
WTTW was the call letters for PBS Chicago. That's my
A local affiliate in the Midwest.
yeah.
And I guess the Helena Rubinstein Foundation cannot lift the entire burden of the Children's Television Workshop. And then they sell it to Warner Brothers a while ago, or somebody did HBO pick up the rights.
HBO picked it up, and then because HBO is like fuck kids, they got rid of all the kids programming on it, and so
This is why we can't have nice things.
I mean, HBO dumped Batman to
Yeah,
Amazon, so like, who knows what's going on? David Zaslav obviously has a plan.
he does. Like, so many people these days in charge of things seem to have plans, and those plans are chaos.
Or concept of a plan. It seems like there's
Right.
a concept of a plan for our country too.
Indeed. Um, I don't know what that is concept is other than you're broke now. Sorry, everybody's broke except for
Hey, I got up early,
Mm,
drove my kid to school, and I went and saw Revenge of the Sith in 4DX today.
now. Are you okay? Is your body recovered from this event?
I will say the Revenge of the Sith is 20 years old. And so when you think back on the prequel movies, there's a lot of taxation of trade routes happening, which, haha, boring 20 years ago, very poignant today. And watching Revenge of the Sith, there's not a lot of talking scenes in that movie. There's a lot of there's a lot of kicking and punching and explosions. I don't quite know if it would qualify as a back massage from getting punched in the back by the seat for 2 hours and 20 minutes. That's the other thing. It's the longest Star Wars movie. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Oh, shit.
Actually, it's not. This one of those sequel movies is, but previous to it's a long movie. It was very, very cool and relentless. Like
Yeah.
it's 2 hours and 20 minutes of jostling. It's like the Matterhorn at Disneyland for like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah, like I've seen a handful of things in 40X thanks to our good friend Brett Deacon. Some of them are great. Like Top Gun, top class. Dune was phenomenal. Because both of those movies have this there are senses of motion, but there's not assault. It lulls you into the story in a way that's actually kind of invigorating. Fast X was like I got mugged. I mean, Fast X was just, I was holding on so tight for dear life that I missed a lot of the movie because I was being thrashed about in my seat and trying to keep my equilibrium. And like it's cool unless you're trying to care. And then it becomes a little bit much.
That's why, like, I think Revenge of the Sith is actually a great movie to go do it at. Like, when that movie came out 20 years ago, I saw it. I was living in Hoboken, New Jersey. I had tickets to see the midnight showing in Jersey. And then I heard a rumor in line that there was a 4 a.m. showing in Times Square. So I went from the theater in Jersey, got on the train, went under the river, went and I saw it in Times Square, got home at about 7, slept for 2 hours, and went and got in line again to see it at 10 a.m., 1 p.m., 4 p.m., 7 p.m., and 10 p.m. on release day. So I've seen the movie a lot.
How did it hold up for you now, 20 years later?
Honestly, so I watched it. I did a podcast on Monday. I am I'm going to spoil it. I'm sorry, everybody who's involved in my other podcast. I do a podcast called Pod of Rebellion with the voice actors of Star Wars Rebels, and we're rewatching Rebels and talking about it as we go. And we're going to do a little Revenge of the Sith thing for the 20th anniversary later in the month. So I rewatched it Sunday night at home.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of worse than I remember it. But I will tell you, sitting in the movie theater, it was so much, like this morning, it was so much better than I remember it, which is crazy to think that the size of the screen and an audience shifted my feelings on that movie between Monday or Sunday night and Wednesday morning. Like, wow. It needs to be a spectacle.
Yeah.
But, you know, it also, there was some other stuff about it that, like the Anakin Padme stuff, now that I have children, it's the first time I've watched it since I have kids. And all of a sudden, when Anakin is like, hey, you die in childbirth, and I am going to destroy the galaxy to save your life and my child's life, I was like, oh, fuck yeah, that makes sense. I've been there. You know, we just had a baby. My baby's 9 weeks old, and Jen had a lot of health issues leading up to the baby coming 3 weeks early. And it was weird. I found myself getting a little teary-eyed at points because all of a sudden, as a dad or what will be a new father and the person I love, I was like, oh man, I think I understand this. I feel this now in a way that I never felt before. And even I guess I'm old enough now that I've been in enough toxic relationships where I'm like, oh, I see what they were going for here. Like, George was not trying to tell you that this is a wonderful love story. He's trying to tell you what not to do when you get to high school and start dating. So it really worked way better than I thought it would in the movie theater today.
I'm gonna have to rewatch it because I don't think I've seen it. Maybe I saw it when it first came to video, 18 years ago, but I've never sat through all of it since, and it's been a long time. And I remember my biggest issue with it being, I think it's the most successful of the prequels. Mostly because it has story weight and propulsion. Like, oh, this is where the thing that's important happens.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of it was kind of preamble to that. But the thing that never really worked for me was Revenge of the Sith is predicated entirely on a romance that George doesn't really give you very well in Attack of the Clones. He can't give it to you in Phantom Menace because he's a child. That's weird. But so the entirety of the here's why this guy turns evil is because he thinks his girl is stepping out on him. The romance doesn't feel like the galaxy's most important romance. It doesn't feel deep. It doesn't feel earned. It feels kind of accidental. So when he thinks it goes bad, it doesn't go bad. He's just paranoid. It doesn't feel as if he's losing the greatest romance that ever was. Now, granted, in high school, we all think every romance we have is the end of the world, but the movie doesn't quite support that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what struck me watching it this time, why that didn't bug me as much today, is that I guess I just got to the point where I didn't believe it was supposed to be a romance anymore. Like it was supposed to be obsession. And when something is obsession, you behave differently than you do if something is actually love or like a true thing. And thinking about it more, I think it parallels Return of the Jedi really well in that Anakin thought he was doing all of this for love, and it made the galaxy collapse. And when he finally does make a choice out of love, he saves the galaxy. In Return of the Jedi, right? Like, the prequels are all about the Jedi saying, you cannot love things because love is attachment, and attachment will cause you to do bad things. And the Jedi denying, like, there's a whole scene with Yoda that I totally forgot about where Yoda is just like, yeah, if your friend's gonna die and you saw it in a premonition, wish them well on their way out. You shouldn't mourn that. And I'm like, come on, Yoda. Maybe Yoda species is sociopathic, but you're not humans. So it really, like, it was interesting because it reframed kind of all of the prequels for me, which were stories about how this guy who all he did was love was told no, 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 and it tore the galaxy apart. And when he was finally able to embrace the love of his child because his child loved him unconditionally, it brought everything back together.
Yeah, no, it is a lovely, the long arc of these movies is to a certain degree what the problem was with the sequel trilogy, in that George knew the meta story he was telling, and could hold it in his head and can communicate it to other people and say, this is the 6-chapter story. This is what this is. And, bumps notwithstanding and shoddy chapters notwithstanding, it rhymes and it echoes and it circles back around and it becomes, operatic and, for better and for worse, it is precisely the story he always wanted to tell. And then you get to the sequel trilogy and it's like, who's telling this story?
Yeah. Seth MacFarlane and Family Guy are telling that story.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, we can debate it all night long, and maybe we will, because this is a very good pod. But I need to I think I owe it to myself, especially once I get to the end of Andor. But like, you know what? I'm gonna start from the beginning, and I'm gonna watch all of these fuckers because it's been a long time since maybe ever since I've literally done, Solo all the way through.
It's yeah, it's I mean, there's also some stuff in there where, like, if you're living in the United States today, you're like, oh, I see what's going on here. And the way a republic falls, cronies in the Senate and in the courts passing laws just to appease the emperor. I don't know where the relevance is there, but you might see it.
It does escape you. But I think it is not like I'm going to watch everything, because I still am not going to be, I don't have the bandwidth to be that level of completist. I'm going to watch all of the movies and see how that story stitches together from sort of film to film, trilogy to trilogy, interspersals to whatever. Like, I'm not adding Clone Wars or Rebels, and Mando is going to be its own thing, and Boba Fett I will never watch again. I think I'm just going to go the sort of main line. Like, here's the story George wanted to tell, and here's the spot welding that happened sort of along the way by other people.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's anyway, I think it's worth a revisit. And the two other things that one of the guys I was with who I saw it with, I have a couple friends who are very like pinkies up film connoisseurs who went and I watched it with today. And something he said struck me, which was in the 90s, all that dialogue, or, 2005 when it came out, all that dialogue that they wrote between Anakin and Padme and all of this stuff felt so like dated and weird, but now it's been long enough that it almost just feels like ancient history. Like if you're watching Gladiator and they're like, well, Commodus, I think that we should eat more grapes. You don't bump against it as hard. And it's almost been long enough with it, this was his take on it with Revenge of the Sith, that the cringe of the dialogue 20 years ago, it's now so far beyond that you just kind of look at it as if you're listening to something from ancient history, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that it was automatically a period film when it was made, um, even though we couldn't see it as such at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I was watching the Light and Magic, the ILM, the second season of the ILM documentary, which if the spine of the first season, which is a superior season, but if it's Star Wars, it's the creation of ILM, going from ultimately Star Wars, like dudes in a fucking garage in Van Nuys inventing, motion capture and shit, all the way to Jurassic Park, which feels like the other end of that, which is we just made dinosaurs in a computer, and how that sort of changed how Lucasfilm operated, and what the spine of that business was, which for the longest time had been making models, which had been like miniatures and matte paintings, and like baby steps towards CG. The second season of Light and Magic is about the sequel trilogy. I mean, sorry, it's about the prequel trilogy. So it's about um, George seemingly hell bent on digitizing film. You know, the number of VFX shots, the scope and the scale, and still using models and still using sort of classic special effects technology, but his like, we're going to shoot on digital, we are going to post on digital, we're going to output onto digital, we're going to convince theaters to have digital projectors, like all of this work to get a business, an industry to pivot, mostly because he was willing to spend the money to figure out how to do all of these things, and then sort of dovetailing with that, stuff like Pirates of the Caribbean and Twister and Perfect Storm, and just the things that were very difficult at the time that they figured out how to do, which is like particle physics, basically. Was
Mm-hmm.
like, how do we make water work? How do we make tornadoes work? Like, these are not things that we can do with matte paintings. These are not things we can do hand drawn animation. It's not a thing we can do with models. So how do we figure this shit out? But one of the things, and it's heartbreaking, um, is the Jar Jar stuff, is the Ahmed Best stuff, where he goes on camera and he just tells you his story and his
Uh,
experience. Episode one, and him standing on the Brooklyn Bridge and thinking about jumping off, and he's like, yeah, gust of wind like blew me back onto the bridge ultimately, and I thought to myself, like, what am I doing? Like, there's more for me to do yet. But George always said that, like, people will hate this now, but mark my words, in like 15 years, this movie will be somebody's favorite movie, and Jar Jar will be somebody's favorite character. And lo and behold, like, all of that came to pass.
did I ever tell? Have I ever told my Jar Jar theory on this
Mm,
story?
I
I have
You told it to me.
about 10 feet this way a life size statue of Jar Jar Binks in my home studio, and admittedly, um, I got to a point in my Star Wars fandom when I was like, for a very long time, it was like Luke Skywalker was everybody's favorite, then Han Solo, and then it was like you got the Wedge Antilles, right? Like, to prove you were a Star Wars fan, your favorite character was no longer one of the main characters, this was Wedge. And then it was like Akbar, and then you're like
Porkins.
Crix Madine, Madine was such a badass. He used to be an Imperial. He flipped over and he brought Shuttle Tidarium to the rebels so without Crix Madine, right? So as a adolescent fan, I'm trying to like constantly flex what my fandom is. And I got to the point where I kind of like, ironically a little bit, was Jar Jar. I chose Jar Jar. And mostly it was like a conversation starter with people. But what started happening is the more I talked about Jar Jar, the more I looked at the Jar Jar character and what his thing is. And so I started talking about Jar Jar very passionately in that in Star Wars, Sam Witwer has said multiple times, he's like, we are all Luke Skywalker and we all pretend to be Han Solo, right? When you watch that movie, you're like, I'm the Han Solo of my group. No, you're not. You're Luke. Shut up, right? Your older brother is always Han Solo, the guy you look up to. But what I saw in Jar Jar, what I started to see in Jar Jar is the generation of fans who grew up getting teased because they were nerds. That's Jar Jar. And the reason at 18 that my people like shat on Jar Jar so hard is Jar Jar in that movie is unapologetically nerdy. He's unapologetically the comic book fan, the guy who brings the comic books to school, who plays Magic the Gathering at lunch and doesn't care if the jocks ridicule him. Right? Jar Jar, why were you banished? Oh, I'm clumsy. Jar Jar, why are you doing this? Well, I'm just Jar Jar. I am who I am. He's unapologetically who he is, even if he doesn't fit in. And I think that made a generation of people who were taught to hide who they were uncomfortable. Because if you ask younger kids, who their favorite character was. Well, it was Jar Jar until my older brother told me I was an idiot for liking Jar Jar. It is I think that he is like the character that is truest of heart that exists in the Star Wars universe. And I think there's something wonderful about that. I think there's something aspirational for kids to look at that character and not be ashamed of who they are. That's in there that 18-year-old guys who wanted to see more Darth Maul got upset about when he steps in poop.
Yeah, I mean, I that is a deep read. I can't counter that read. I think it's valid. I think there's, granted, I don't need to validate your read. Your read is your read. Your feelings about Jar Jar, your feelings about Jar Jar, and they can't be invalidated because it's emotional. But I don't think there's anything in my experience that runs counter to that. I think just for me, as coming to it not as an 18-year-old, but probably a 32-year-old, I think when the prequels came out, my biggest issue with it was and it's completely my issue with it. It's that I had expected Star Wars to grow up with me. Mm-hmm. And Jar Jar is the emblematic character that shows that it didn't. Like, Jar Jar is for kids, and every scene with Jar Jar in it feels like it's a scene oriented around the child's point of view. And in my youth, in my heady film nerd youth, I was like, okay, we got these Jedis, cool, I get to see what Jedis do, and that's neat. Trade tariff sanctions, all right, this is okay. I mean, the first one began with a blockade running, so clearly George has governmental procedure on his mind. And then Jar Jar shows up and steps in poop, and then it became like, oh, it's a clown show for kids, and I resisted that, and I because I selfishly expected to get something a bit more mature, um, and it wasn't until Mandalorian that I remembered. I was like, oh no, these are always kids movies. You know, A New Hope is a kids movie. They're all kids movies. There are big themes. They're Pixar movies before there was a Pixar. In
Mm-hmm.
that there's enough whiz bang to keep your average kid entertained, but there's also like deep themes about rebellion and governmental overreach and obsession and corruption and all that stuff that at 7 you don't know. Like, look, he's got a laser sword and the guy with the big shiny helmet, and they're gonna fight each other. And there's a puppet wizard guy, and there's a giant walking rug, and like it's all of those things are catnip for kids. But I had, and I don't even know why I thought it was going to be a movie for me again. And I think that was the problem. Like I expected a thing that those movies weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not willing to meet the movie on its own terms because I thought I was the target audience. I was
Yeah.
part of the generation that made it a hit. So of course these movies will be for me. And they were not. And that's okay. But it just took me a while to reconcile with the not for you, homie. Not everything is going to be for you.
Mm-hmm. I yeah, I it's wild to see the generational gap and the people who there were some guys who came into Scum and Villainy the other day. One of them in a full Darth Vader costume, a handful in prequels or Jedi robes. And I said, "Oh, are you coming from the movie or going to the movie?" They're like, "Oh, coming from the movie." And I stopped myself before going into it. I go, "Were any of you old enough to see the movie when it was originally released in theaters?" And they go, "Only he was," which was the guy in the Darth Vader costume. I was like, "How was it?" And they were like, "Oh, dude, it's my favorite movie of all time. It's the thing that got me into Star Wars, and I've been watching it at home my whole life, and meant the world to me to see it in the movie theater." And that was me in 1997 when the
Mm-hmm.
special editions came out, right? Because I
Yeah.
had never seen Star Wars in the movie theater. And so it's interesting, you believe that everything you love is created just for you, and it's not.
And will always be for you. Like that's the other trick is a movie is a moment in time. Granted, we've seen 8 different versions of A New Hope. Um, as I select to call it Star Wars because it was not A New Hope when I first saw it. Um, and I've had to become somewhat sanguine about it, which is like, you know what? Most Star Wars will not be for me. I can appreciate it, but I can't. I'm not in it the way I hoped I would be in it. Then you get an Andor, which is profoundly for me. Andor
Mm-hmm.
is what if Star Wars grew up with you? What if Star Wars is now a 45-year-old franchise that has, gotten a chance to be sillier and gotten a chance to be a bit more serious, got a chance to do this, that, and whatever. Now it's just fucking Jean Le Carre. Now it's spy shit. Now it's like 70s indie cinema, um, on the grandest scale possible, which is great. But if you're a kid, you also get Skeleton Crew, and that's awesome.
Did hey, before that great segue into Andor, did you notice? Oh, you missed it. Well, in the next episodes of Andor, Andor cooks dinner, which
Ooh,
might be a good time to
you
let
know,
Cassian know about Grazza.
Graza. Yeah, man. This episode of Fat Man Beyond is brought to you by the good folks at Graza, which I have to be sure to pronounce the right way because otherwise they get mad at me. It is my new favorite olive oil. It is fresh. It is never blended. It comes from a single type of olive, the Picual, straight out of high-end Spain, where over half the world's olive oil is produced. Why should you give a crap about Graza? Because single origin goodness, only one olive from one region, no mysterious blends, means a traceable, fresher product without mixing any lower grade or unknown oils. Super fun squeeze and spray bottles. No more messy tins or drippy spouts. Just aim, squeeze, and go. 3 types of oil for any task. You got your frizzle with a higher 490-degree smoke point, perfect for frying, crisping, or grilling. Your sizzle, 410-degree smoke point, everyday cooking oil for roasting, marinating, and sauteing. And then your drizzle, a bold, punchy finishing oil. You can just sprinkle on salads, dip bread in, even top off ice cream. Apparently, that's cool. I haven't tried it yet. Oil and ice cream, not sure. But listen, these guys, this oil is so good, I might give it a go. I was telling Kev the other day, I've gotten on a baked potato kick,
Ooh.
which I swore off for a long time, remembering his odyssey with baked potatoes at the beginning of his vegan journey. But it's the simplest thing in the world to do is just wrap it in tin foil. But before you wrap it, a little dollop of a little graza in there, a little salt, pepper, rosemary, thyme. Seal it up, stick in the oven 350 for like an hour. Oh man, it's perfect. The skin is a little crispy. It's got a nice flavor. It's awesome.
Oh, makes me want to
More,
go preheat my oven.
get
Get
in
one
there.
going.
Friggin' do it. So listen, head to graza.co, that's graza.co, and use the code FATMAN to get 10% off the trio, which includes the sizzle, the frizzle, and the drizzle. Um, you know, 10% off your first order, man. Go to Graza's site, get that trio, all 3 squeezy bottles. You're set for every style of cooking. So yes, graza.co, FATMAN at the checkout, 10% off the trio. Sizzle, frizzle, drizzle. Get to cooking your next chef quality meal. Trust me, man. You'll dig it.
Jen used grasa tonight on her fried eggs and avocado toast as I was walking out to start the show. I am on the show enough that now they're sending me this stuff too to try. And I think this will be a thing that actually we continue to purchase. When we've run out of the freebie, I think we're going to actually continue to purchase the 3 different types of olive oil from them.
Every now and again we hit a sponsor that just becomes a part of your daily life, and this is one of them. I'm not going to say which ones are or aren't, other than this. There are some that we wholeheartedly believe in, and then some we just,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That's all. But yeah, these guys are the goods.
So I am dying to know, because I don't know if anybody loved Andor season 1 as much as I do, but it was like your top 1 or 2 of the year when it came out, season 1.
Yeah.
Where do you sit? Because I've seen 4, 5, and 6. Where do you sit after watching the first 3?
I sit kind of, it seems as if the show, and this, it makes a certain amount of sense, which is beginnings can be a little, you're putting pieces in place. You're setting the table for the drama that is to come. So it's difficult for the beginnings of seasons to start hot. There's always a bit of a ramp up. Season 1 was a lot of like, here's who Cassian is, here's his people, here's the situation, here's Deidre, here's Cyril, here's everybody. We're introducing you to the world. This, it's not we're introducing you to the world anymore, but you don't know when you are and where you are in the and this one, actually, season 2 does start pretty hot with Cassian stealing an experimental TIE fighter. Like, that stuff is great. The wedding stuff takes a while to get going, and it's like, there's parts of it that the detail work is so phenomenal, but it is still like, I don't know why I care yet until you get to the moment where you care. And it's all character based. It's all because we've come to know Mon Mothma. We remember the precarious situation she was in season 1, where she basically had to sell her daughter to an unsavory gentleman so he can marry off to his son. And so her ambivalence about the traditional wedding customs of her people and the almost chattel-like way she's going to hand her daughter off to a mob boss.
Mm-hmm.
And when it crests, when it gets there, we are spoiling the first three. But season one, you meet Mon, you meet her childhood best friend who wants to, chastises her for not being willing to do more in her position as a senator. And she brings him into the fold and it's like, listen, buddy, if you really want to do more, welcome to the rebellion. And in season two, here's a dude who's drinking too much, broke up with his wife, maybe like sloppy fucking drunk, might be telling the wrong people the wrong things. And Mon Mothma and Luthen, who has managed to convince everybody that he needed to be at this wedding, they got to kill this dude. Like, there's no number. She keeps looking for the number that they can buy him off with, buy his silence with. And Luthen is like, there's no number that's going to go. You're going to belong to him if you think you can blackmail him, if you think you can pay him off, if you think you can buy his silence. The number will never be enough. The only solution to this is what to do. And like, there's a dance sequence at the end of episode 3 that is haunting. Mm-hmm. That it is just this, and all of the emotional stuff, all of that payoff only comes because it's been freight dragged from season 1 into season 2. So what sort of tradition means to her. What the rebellion means to her. What her daughter means to her. That the woman who's going to be her childhood buddy's driver is not her childhood buddy's driver, is a fucking assassin that who is the girl to be named later who will do the bad shit. And the minute she shows up as his new driver, you know exactly what's going to happen. And so when fucking Mon is just like punching the ceiling, just fucking letting roar with abandon, tears on her face, like, it is not joy that she is dancing for. It is not happiness as she tries to give her daughter an out of a wedding that she doesn't want to be a party to. It is just, I have nothing left in this world that I thought was good and clean. And my only response to that is to just dance like nothing matters because everything matters. Like, I just think that's amazing. But you got to get there.
I watched those first 3 episodes, and again, I get in trouble, but Andor came out in 2021, I think, and for 4 years I have been waiting for season 2. And I feel as if a little bit this will be the last great Star Wars that we see for a very long time. I went to the Andor season 2 premiere at the El Cap. They only showed the first 10 minutes of it to us. They didn't show us the whole thing, but they did a Q&A, and I was at the Comic-Con stuff they did for the sequel trilogy with J.J. Abrams and Kasdan. Mm-hmm. And you listen to the way they talked about Star Wars, and they talk about Star Wars as like cheerleaders talk about Star Wars, right? Like a cheerleader roots for the team that they're employed to root for, right? And that's fine. Tony Gilroy and Diego Luna spoke with such reverence for what they were doing, and not just because it was Star Wars and Star Wars is fun and there's Wookiees in it, but because they thought it was important at the premiere during the Q&A. And so I have people over to my house on Tuesday nights. I coach T-ball. After T-ball gets done, a bunch of people come over and we watch it. We turn it up way too loud for how late it is. And I have like a 77-inch OLED TV and a Dolby Atmos sound system and just get lost in it. And the first 3, I rewatched season 1, and like the first 3 episodes of season 1, everybody is like, oh man, those are a slow burn, but they're so good. First 3 episodes of season 2, if season 1 is a slow burn that starts with him going into a brothel and killing people, this is the slowest burn in the history of anything. So I'm watching it, and I was like, we only get 12 episodes of what I consider to be the last what I think will be the last great Star Wars. And I'm like, what are we doing hanging out on Yavin 4 with a bunch of hippies who belong in buses, like on the beach? Like, what is this? Like, there was so much of it where it was like, what is this? But at the same time, I remember seeing episode 2 when it came out and seeing Padme's apartment and being like, oh my God, this is like what like normal people in Star Wars, how they decorate their house, and look at the bed, like the minutia of Star Wars and the galaxy. And the fact that we got to spend 45 minutes at an opulent Star Wars wedding was like, part of me was like, what is the point of this? And by the end of it, I'm like right there with Mon Mothma being like, hell yeah, look at that disco droid. It was so interesting to me how like slow and almost like self-indulgent it was for Gilroy to just like lean into the shit about Star Wars that he obviously loves in a way that like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni don't, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it seems as if, ironically, Tony Gilroy, Dan Gilroy, Beau Willimon are the first people to take the reins of Star Wars with the same perspective that George had, which is, how can I use this to tell a story with relevance today?
Mm-hmm.
You know, George wrote, Star Wars, or the Star Wars, in the wake of Vietnam. Like, and he very specifically wrote a story about the rebels taking on the Empire. And the rebels for him were the Vietnamese, and the Empire for him was America. And asymmetrical warfare and fighting the Empire to a standstill and making them leave. Like, that was his story. And so the Gilroy brothers, are now writing a story about rebellion. They're now writing a story about political expediency, about, documentation of illegals, about arranged marriages, or about what is the cost of doing the right thing? What are you willing to sacrifice for the right thing? How do you fund a rebellion? Like, the banality of evil, you can absolutely just sit and watch Krennic talk about, we have to get this fiber from this planet. We just need it. It doesn't matter how we get it. It doesn't matter who we have to kill for it. We have to have it. So we're going to put some mid-level bureaucrat in charge of, who may or may not be qualified of suppressing a people to get a thing. Tony Gilroy is not inspired by Star Wars. He's inspired by the world and using Star Wars to tell a story about it. Mm-hmm. Unlike everybody else since, who's been making fan films and fan series of Star Wars, which I get it. Like, we grew up as fans. And so if you get to do a Star Wars, what do I want to do? I want to do the things I love about Star Wars. But Gilroy doesn't seem interested in that. He wants to do a story about desperation, about loneliness, about purpose, about, what it means to give up everything, on the off chance that you might get everything back.
Looking back at Andor season 1, they had those 3 great speeches, which was Andy Serkis, and 2 of them came in episode 10, which was One Way Out, Andy Serkis, and then Skarsgård's Sacrifice, and then in episode 12, his mother via hologram has, again, a great speech, but a very like Independence Day, today we celebrate our Independence Day, like more on the nose, traditional Michael Bay-esque speech. And the thing that I think has been overlooked in everything I've seen from the first 3 episodes of Andor is how wonderful and quiet but poignant the speech is that he gives to the woman at the beginning of episode 1 about her awakening and why and like the backstory is like Sinear is it's like Boeing, right? Or Lockheed Martin. And so she's not an Imperial. She's working at a starship manufacturer. And she is just taken her first steps into a larger world. And she's like, I'm not supposed to look at you. I'm not supposed to do this. Like, she's so timid. And for him to like grab her by the shoulders and is like, the choice you made today fuels me to do the things that I have to do to make the world a better place. And you will now become the person you were meant to be. Like, that speech to me was as good, but on such a like quiet level of like the guy at the grocery store who makes the choice to pick up the hammer and throw it at the bad guy.
Yeah. And it's also telling you that Andor, Cassian, is now the same person that Luthen is. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's what Luthen gave to Cassian, which was, wouldn't you like to do more? Wouldn't you like to, like, I know you want to take these little petty pot shots at the Empire. I know they took things from you. I know they did. But wouldn't you like to be able to take a big chunk out of them? Wouldn't you like to come and fight them for real? Help me and then help yourself and then be the man you wanted to be. Like, Cassian's a true believer now. He's no longer like suspicious. He's no longer on the outside. He's no longer, in any way ambivalent about it. He's recruiting people now. He's telling people what they need to hear so that he can do what he needs to do.
Somebody in chat just said, remember when movies used to let us escape the world for a couple hours and not have it rammed in our faces anymore? I just want to point out that the bad guys in Star Wars were called stormtroopers, which was not a word that George Lucas made up. It was borrowed from Nazi Germany. And when Star Wars came out in 1977, as Mark talked about earlier, the rebels were the Vietnamese. And that is well documented out of George's mouth. Which, side note, did you know that George was supposed to go to Vietnam and was drafted? And was denied and could not go because he was diabetic.
Oh, shit.
And the rumor kind of is that the torture droid on the Death Star with the giant hypodermic needle is because he's had to have insulin injections his whole life.
Wow.
And it's torture.
That all checks out. That all makes sense. It all comes from somewhere.
But yeah, anyway, here I'll also say the other thing is like this show was written years ago, well before, like, you're watching it today, but it was done filming and written like during a very different presidency than what you're seeing now. And if you're seeing something that's in your face about what's happening in that show, this isn't like real. It's not happening in real time. It's not like they're watching the news and being like, oh my God, look at what these jokers just did. Let's put it in the show. It's like, hey, and that's again what George did with the prequels is like empires fall in a certain way and rebellions happen in a certain way. And as much as the original trilogy was World War II, the prequel trilogy was the Roman Empire. And, yeah, if you're seeing something in the show that's that's happening today, it's because it repeats itself and because we're going down a path that we've seen before.
Yes, empires fall not entirely in the same ways, but it's always the same result. And yeah, like, sorry, man, art is always political. It almost always is. If art is a reflection of the world surrounding the artist, the absence of the political is also a political statement, as much as the presence of the political, even if it's couched in ways that you don't quite understand at the time. But it's kind of always there. And George was the ultimate independent filmmaker. He was always an iconoclast. He was always outside the system. He was always punching up, and Star Wars at its best does the same thing. So,
There's also, just to try to placate, like Ted Cruz's favorite movie is Star Wars because he sees himself as a rebel in it, right? So like you see what you want to see in a lot of really good storytelling, right? Like you are the hero of your own story. Nobody on Earth walking the earth is like, I'm the bad guy. I'm Darth Vader, right? Everybody thinks that they're one of the guys in the rebellion. It's just how you, from a certain point of view, we'll just say.
indeed. Yeah. I mean, the other guy who's currently on tour, sort of made his bones talking about how technically Luke Skywalker is a war criminal. He
Yeah.
killed, non-combatants in a war, and like, yeah, the dude sweeping the floors did not sign up. Like he was not on the front lines. He was just probably a union contractor who got caught in the middle.
I will say, episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Andor. It builds. It does a really nice job building, and you start to see. I mean, the thing I love about it that everybody's lost, right? Because Star Wars has become memed is like, stormtroopers have bad aim, ha ha ha, and like this, ha ha ha, that, ha ha ha. Like you have Darth Vader and stormtroopers doing dance moves at Disneyland or dressing like Donald Duck. The Empire is scary here. It's inventive scary. It's manipulative scary. It's sinister. Everybody in the Empire is terrifying in this show. Like a TIE fighter, which is like a joke by the time you get to, they fly now, ha ha ha, wink at the camera. You've made it scary again. Like they figured out a way to like reground how evil those fuckers are.
Yeah. And so much of it, and I'm not going to say it's simple, but it's just because the Empire has convinced itself that everybody that it rules is not quite human, or at least not human enough. They don't have any moral compunction whatsoever about doing any of the things that they do. It's just, this is business. This is security. This is for the good of the Empire. And if we have to kill a planet's worth of people to secure a sector or a quadrant, we will do so without the blink of an eye.
It's the needs of, it's Star Trek, right? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, Spock.
Yeah.
And the Empire believes that they're doing the right thing. And
yeah, like, and if you believe you're doing the right thing, you'll do almost anything, which is like, they call them stormtroopers for a reason.
Mm-hmm. It gets better. The next episodes get better. Like even like the funny little, like the stuff with Cyril and Dedra gets even better.
Domestic life is hilarious.
Yeah, it's it gets even better. Oh, I'm so excited. I had somebody I know got screeners for the whole series. Probably because they're like a Emmy voter or something. And he said the first 3, and he didn't like season 1. Not enough space wizards. And this guy told me, he's like, the first 3 episodes are not great. The second 3 episodes are pretty good. The last 6 is the best stuff you'll ever see. And that's coming from a guy who didn't like season 1. Also, I'm going to say, like, seeing a lot of spirited comments in the chat about Star Wars being for kids and Andor's not for kids. And, there's some evil, rapey shit that happens, and that has no place in Star Wars. I will say that Princess Leia was a sex slave in 1983 to a giant worm. So maybe. I will also say that, like, as Mark and I were talking earlier about Star Wars and how Mark felt that Star Wars should have grown up with him, at that point, there was 6 hours of Star Wars total. There is so much Star Wars without any end to Star Wars that if the only Star Wars we get is regurgitated hero's journey about a boy or a girl or an alien who goes on an adventure and learns a thing or two about the Force and then comes back better than they left it, it's going to get real boring. There needs to be adult Star Wars. And it's okay if you're like, I don't want to watch adult Star Wars. I want to watch kids Star Wars. You know why? Because there's kids Star Wars coming out on May the 4th. It's called Tales of the Underworld. It's an animated show, you know? And then there's all sorts of other Star Wars coming out. Mandalorian and Grogu. I'm sure that's going to be right up your alley.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, there are people who need Star Wars to be Andor. And there are people who need Star Wars to be Skeleton Crew, and we're lucky enough to live in a world where we get both. Everybody gets fed.
Yeah, which was always the dream, which was always the hope, is that, you know, if you wanted it as a grown up, you wanted a different version of it, you could have it. If you wanted, again, more of the same, you could have it. Like, this is the glory time. This is the land undreamed of. There was so much Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Choose the Star Wars you wanted to watch. It was a prison with.
I was talking with Alex, who runs a YouTube channel called Star Wars Explained, and he said Star Wars now is like going to a restaurant to eat dinner. And the wonderful thing about it is everybody in your family gets to eat exactly what you want, what they want. And if you don't like mushrooms, you don't have to order the mushroom dish. And sometimes you're going to venture out and try something on the menu that you haven't tried before, even if it's your favorite restaurant, and you're not going to like it. And that's okay. You don't have to go back into the kitchen and spit in the chef's face.
So don't order it again.
Yeah, just don't order it again.
Okay, I didn't like that one. I'm not going to watch more. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing if you want to watch that. If you want the same cheeseburger you've had for the last, 20 years, you can also do that again, which is also fine. But all of this is to say, I'm in love with Andor as a TV show. I'm in love with the promise of the rest of the season of Andor. I'm sad that this is the last season of Andor.
Me too.
Because as Tony said, is like he looked at Diego and was like, we can't just do this for another 20 years to do 5 seasons of this show. If it's taking us 4 years between seasons, we're not going to be done until, the middle of the century. And so we just need to find a way to compress and a way to kind of burn through it and still tell the story we want to tell. I just hope that Lucasfilm doesn't forget the lesson of Andor, which is like, yeah, you can keep doing a bunch of things, but be mindful that one of those things could also be mature and could also be sophisticated and might not be for as many people as you'd like it to be, but the people who love it to fucking death. And so don't leave that audience unfed.
Yeah. Hey, can I go? I got to live another childhood dream the other day, and I have a prop.
Okay.
And I forgot about it until right now. Can I leave you solo for 15 seconds while I bring this back? Because I think you might geek out about it, and there is a future in which this little world, it's Star Wars related, will expand. So give me 15 seconds. I will be right back.
Yeah, I'm seeing in the chat somebody's asking for me to invoke the word coos again. And if you didn't see the Sinners Black Man Beyond, we did spend a lot of time sort of conjugating the word coos. Chekhov's coos, I think, is my favorite bit.
Okay.
Yes. I'm waxing philosophic about the word coos again, and how it's probably not going to make another appearance other than just now.
I used the word koozie the other day for like a drink, but it was after we had done the Sinners, and I was like, oh, I just said that in front of my daughter. Maybe I should. Made me so confused. Okay. We had done a long episode a few years ago after I had been on Galactic Star Cruiser.
Yes.
And I find myself longing to go back and have that experience again, which I will never be able to do. Mm. And one of the things I found on the internet was somebody had done a highly detailed 3D model of the lobby of the spaceship that you're on. So I bought it, and I'm going to 3D print it. But that wasn't enough for me, because I was like, well, just looking at the thing isn't going to take me back there. What's going to take me back there? And I found a guy on the internet.
Always a guy on the internet.
Who makes custom action figures.
Oh, boy.
And this has been a dream I've had for a long time. So I have my own action figure done in like the let's see if I can get it, 1977 style Star Wars. So he 3D modeled me. His name's Funky McClunky, of course, on Instagram.
Yeah, it is.
He 3D modeled me into an articulated action figure and sent me the files to 3D print. But I also, and you know Elliot, I went with my two friends, and so I did action figures of my two friends also. And I'm going to put us in the 3D model that I'm printing of the Star Cruiser. So whenever I get sad that I'm not on the Star Cruiser, there is a 3 3/4 inch facsimile of me that lives there forever. But I know Kevin has a lot of action figures of Kevin. Mm. The next evolution of this, of course, will be that we 3D print Scum and Villainy, and there becomes a Fat Man Beyond figure pack of us doing the show at the bar.
That's pretty great.
I mean, I think it's going to happen. Like, it'll happen in the next year.
I did see years ago, somebody had made custom Funko Pops of Kevin and I sitting in a booth in Scum and Villainy. They never gave it to me. They just made it for themselves, and I just thought it was fucking awesome that they did that for themselves. But like, that's always the coolest thing. You know, as kids who save their cereal box tops to get the Kenner figures, to at some point be a Kenner figure in your own playset is ridiculous.
I mean, it's kind of, I can't believe we live in a world where, like, I'm never going to get my own action figure, like, for real, but that I can, like, hire somebody to do it. And when I printed it, Jocelyn looks at it and goes, "Dada, is that you? Do you have your own toy?" And I was like, yes. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So get ready, kids, because one day this guy will join that guy and that guy in the virtual cantina for a I mean, well, you can buy us, right? I think we'll sell them.
I mean, why not?
And then you guys, while you're listening to us talk, you can pantomime with the toys.
All of that's great. All of that's
Anyway,
amazing. Well played.
so maybe 3 people care about that story, but my God, if I can't be excited about having my own Kenner action figure on Fat Man Beyond, I don't. There's no venue for that.
No. What else can we be excited about? All right. So yeah, I mean, fucking Andor rules. And it seems to be ruling more and more every passing week. If you're not watching it, watch it. If you're not caught up, catch up. Um, season 1 remains a great season of television, especially the deeper you go into it. Season 2 is so far shaping up to being a worthy successor to season 1. I cannot wait to dive deeper in because it's fucking awesome.
Yeah. I think it is the top rated Star Wars Rotten Tomatoes.
I mean, I believe it. Granted, the original trilogy existed far before the OG Star Wars. And also, the world didn't know what it was yet. So there's a fair number of bad reviews for the original Star Wars, a new thing that some people were just not going to get, and didn't. And so, I haven't looked at the tomato meter for A New Hope, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's not, uniformly through the roof.
Yeah. Also, to go back real quick to Revenge of the Sith, I think Revenge of the Sith did $42 million so far in its re-release.
Nostalgia is a hell of a...
beat The Accountant 2.
Yes. The Accountant 2 did not seem to have the legs I think anybody hoped it would, or between the 1-2 punch of Sinners, which made like $43 million the second week, a 6% drop from week 1 to week 2 is unheard of. It is one of a few movies to hold that well ever. And, the nostalgia for Revenge of the Sith did not leave a lot of for The Accountant 2. But yeah, man. It is a good time to be a nerd. We're getting fed pretty well. I hear that Thunderbolts is pretty good. I haven't seen it yet, but
also the top scoring Marvel movie, I think, on Rotten Tomatoes right now. It's at 92%.
Yeah. Like maybe they got their mojo back. We'll see if this is the beginning of a trend or if this is a fluke. But either way, I am always here for the good stuff. And I'm always, hoping against hope that the good stuff will out, as the saying goes. We were not on the air while Star Wars Celebration in Japan was happening. A bit of news came out of there, not the least of which is that the next Star Wars Celebration is in Los Angeles, so maybe I'll actually go to my first Star Wars Celebration.
Oh my God, you gotta go.
That would be fun. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been. No. I've been to D23, but I've never been to a Star Wars Celebration. So now's the time, or 2027 is the time.
Yeah, it's 50th anniversary of Star Wars. 20th anniversary of the last time Celebration was in Los Angeles. The 10th anniversary of Scum and Villainy Cantina.
Oh,
all that same week, basically.
Damn. I mean, the Force is going to be with us.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to do that week at Scum. I've been wanting to do it forever, but we're going to do it. We're going to do the Star Wars Olympics. And I'm going to do a full week of Olympic Games for Star Wars. And if you're like, JC, what does that mean? Like, I'm talking like, we're going to do like an X-Wing miniatures tournament on Monday. And then Tuesday, I'll get out the N64 and we'll do episode 1 pod racer, like best lap times and stuff. So like, if you were ever felt as if you were Olympic caliber at anything Star Wars, I am going to give you a venue to compete against other people who feel the same way for fabulous prizes.
I don't even want to think about what trivia will be like that week.
Oh my God. Speaking of, 10 a.m. this Sunday, Elliot and I are doing Star Wars trivia for May the 4th at Scum and Villainy.
I listen, I know that I cannot compete. I know that my knowledge is surface level at best. There's love, but there's not scholarship. And so I would not even deign to put my name down to play. But if you're that person and you're in LA, you 100% should go to Scum and Villainy on Sunday.
I feel like you'd be good at like Battlefront. Like if we did a Battlefront tournament, I feel like you could place.
Maybe
You could medal in Battlefront, you know.
you could podium. Not going to win gold, but you'll podium. Fair enough.
I was supposed to go to Star Wars Celebration,
Oh no.
and I didn't because right around when tickets went on sale, I found out Jen was pregnant, and we did the math on it, and we were like, well, that's not going to work. So
That in Japan is when Jen is recovering from giving birth and having a child.
Yeah, so that didn't happen. Makes me sad. It's like I've missed two of them since 2002. I missed Essen, Germany, and I missed the first Japan one. But I've been to all the others.
Wow. You're completist.
I am. I've
And
run
again,
out of run out of space.
I know. I'm the same way with Comic-Con now. And then I haven't missed one since 2003, 2002 maybe.
Wow.
The only one I missed was because of COVID, because of lockdowns when they didn't have it that summer, and then they had, the special edition the following Thanksgiving, which I didn't count as an actual Comic-Con. But while it's been for real, I've been there. And so even though every year I'm like, you know what, I could probably skip a year, I never do. I never do. So we got the date and the location of the next celebration, Los Angeles 2027. We got a little bit of information about Star Wars Starfighter, directed by Sean Levy and starring one of those Ryan boys, that Gosling fella.
What's your thought on that?
I mean, it's if you're going to tell me that it's just Top Gun in Star Wars, I like Top Gun and I like Star Wars. It doesn't bother me that they're trying to just give you the sensation of that without having to tie deeper into, the ongoing canon. I mean, Levy was like, it's not a prequel, it's not a sequel, it's a brand new thing. Okay, cool.
Is it weird to announce that movie when Rogue Squadron has bounced on and off the slate every 6 months for the last 6 years? Like, are you telling the same story there? How does that work? It's kind of like if the same studio was like, we're going to do this really great movie called Armageddon. Also, Deep Impact is coming out.
Well, I do think that like the presence of this movie pretty much tells you that Rogue Squadron is not happening as of because to your point, they're not making both of those. And if this is, and we have no idea what this is. I don't know if Ryan is playing young Wedge Antilles. Like that'd be great. I don't know if that's that. Sean Levy has made some super fun movies, and I'm down for more super fun movies. I like Ryan Gosling. It seems as if you're going to try to recapture some of that Han Solo bounce, like he's probably the guy to do that. I'm cautiously optimistic to see what this movie is like in 2027, May 2027. Just in time for probably a sneak peek at the at Celebration in Los Angeles. Um, at least I don't have to send anybody overseas to promote it. It'll be right here.
I mean, yeah, I think Horset in chat said it's post episode 9, which I guess is liberating if you're putting the movie there because, like, it doesn't, like, you're not bound by anything, but also you're kind of like in a weird, obscure point in time where everybody's kind of like, who cares?
Right. Yeah. I mean, just give me a good Star Wars. You know, I don't, I might be in the minority of the Star Wars fans who don't need it to vector and attach completely to canon that already exists, much as I've already advocated for a Wedge Antilles movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but even still, just like, hey, find me a pocket of this universe that doesn't have to connect to anything else. Make me a thing where I don't have to do the homework for.
Now, here's what I'll say. If Starfighter is like takes place somewhere in the outer rim and he's like the hotshot pilot for like a planet that the Empire's trying to take over that's too small to be like important, so like the rebellion's not putting resources there and he's got to go up with like kind of like Peter Serafinowicz against Ronin in Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's the movie. That sounds awesome to me.
Yeah. If it's a one-man rebellion,
But like don't put him in an X-wing. Like give him a cool new ship. Like if you're going to deviate, go all the way over here. Don't like half-ass it.
Yeah. Make it a new thing. And don't do the thing where, like, in the very, very last beats of the movie or the closing credit scenes, Rey stops by and says, buddy, join the rebellion. Join the alliance. Like, just let it be its thing. Let it do what it does.
Mm-hmm. What if Ryan Gosling is like Han's illegitimate child from like his separation of Princess Leia?
Yeah.
You want to get Star Wars fans mad.
Yeah, it's like, well, he wasn't gonna like be celibate for those 20 years where they weren't, in it to win it. So maybe he had another kid. Who knows? Who knows? The other bit that I thought you specifically would be incredibly excited about is the Darth Maul animated show. Is Maul Shadow Lord.
So, yeah, I'm interested about this because there's a couple things with this. First off, Darth Maul was supposed to be the bad guy in George Lucas's version of 7, 8, and 9. So I wonder if we're getting a little taste of what could have been there. The other thing that's interesting about this, and I didn't get to see the trailer that they played that then got taken down, and I don't have enough intestinal fortitude to call Sam Witwer and ask him what's really going on with the show and when does it take place and things like that. Not that he would tell me even if I did. But if they are setting this show in the time of Star Wars Rebels and Andor and that type of I mean, I guess they would have to, right? Because Maul is killed at the end of Star Wars Rebels. Spoilers. That's a neat time in the galaxy. Like, that's a really neat time in the galaxy of, like, how, like, Maul is trying to build a criminal enterprise while the Galactic Empire is running everything. Like, do you see a lot of, like, do we get to go to Nal Hutta and Nar Shaddaa and, like, see, like, live some of that time in Hutt space? Does Maul team up with O'Shea Jackson Jr. from Obi-Wan Kenobi and like do some shit there? Like, I mean, that's the show I really want to see is O'Shea Jackson Jr.'s Rebels cell. But yeah, it should be cool. I love that. I my new thing is Star Wars is going to be the end of episode 3 to the end of Return of the Jedi. Like, I think if I focus on that time period, I can
Be happy.
be happy, and in the weird way that, like, for so many years I was the guy who everybody went to because I knew everything about Star Wars, and then Star Wars got too big for anybody. I'm like, well, maybe if I'm just like there are World War II experts. What if I was just an expert on the Galactic Civil War?
Yeah, just that's your concentration.
Like, that's
This,
my thing.
this is where I live. I
Yeah.
live, you know, I live Clone Wars and Rebels, and that's my brackets.
Yeah.
You could
But
do that.
people in chat are like, I thought Darth Maul was killed at the end of episode 1. He was.
Hmm.
He survived. His hatred fueled him. He survived. He built himself
No.
back a robot torso, kept alive through hatred of the dark side, had quite a few arcs in Clone Wars, and you also saw him at the end of Solo, which takes place well after episode 1.
Yeah.
So ultimately is killed by Obi-Wan Kenobi on Tatooine in Star Wars Rebels.
Yes. And if you've never seen the clip where Sam Witwer explains the Obi-Wan Kenobi evolution in that fight, it's worth watching.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is one of those things, and I'm always consistently amazed by the people who know it so well. They've discovered the secret language that the show is telling you. And so Sam Witwer's level of scholarship about Star Wars is such that he saw, and it's all there, like clearly it seems as if it was by design, like he's not making anything up when he reads the final fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, and Obi-Wan's thought process when he's having this fight and Darth Maul's reaction to that. Like it is a fascinating reading, and I buy all of it because it feels emotionally true that, Obi-Wan at this point in his life, how he greets his first worst enemy, is just fascinating. It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, and what's cool about it is that as he's explaining that, and like, look, I'm not an actor, you're not an actor, so I don't quite understand the actor mentality of like what you have to build in your head to become Darth Maul at the end of his life.
Mhm.
So even if there is not the intentionality there from the people who write Star Wars, the fact that that is Sam's version of where Maul is at his life and why Obi-Wan is reacting that way makes it so. You know what I mean? Like the depth that like Sam goes to understand the Darth Maul character and then put that behind the performances. Not,
It's not insignificant.
yeah.
It's a level of scholarship. I've done the research. I had to get into this guy's head to play him for as long as I have. And so I know him in a way that few people will, including the people who write and direct and animate that show.
Mm-hmm.
And also Sam's just a cool dude. I like Sam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yes, good for him. Glad to see him being routinely employed.
This is no longer a secret. And I got to be careful about how I put this out there. Sam was very, very close to being Kanan Jarrus in Star Wars Rebels.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then Freddie got it. Freddie was great. But yeah, Sam has been on the fringe of becoming the lead character in a Star Wars property, I feel like, for ages. So it's exciting for me that he finally got it, because if anybody deserves it, that guy does.
Yeah. It's feels like he was the Crash Davis of Star Wars for a while, like the
Yeah.
player to be
Oh my
named
God.
later.
I rewatched that the other night. I'm playing baseball again on the weekends in this like rec league in Burbank, and I'm rewatching all those baseball movies. What a great movie that is.
It really is. And it's the not to completely digress away from Star Wars into sports movies, but great sports movies are not about the sport that the movie's about. And Bull Durham is definitely an exemplary example of that, which is sure, baseball's in it and it knows baseball very well, but it is not a movie about baseball.
Mm-hmm.
um and I think the last bit of news that I saw, well, no, there was also the Ahsoka season 2 stuff and Roy McGann replacing the late great Ray Stevenson um as Balin Cole, correct? Right.
Yeah, Skull.
Skull, there it is. Um, and then yeah, there I saw a shot from Rosario Dawson's Instagram, a shadow of her in the outfit, and they're up and doing the thing.
And
So
Hayden's back. That was the other news for Ahsoka.
back, pre fall, Anakin Skywalker, which also leads one to believe there's still going to be lots more flashback stories in season 2,
Or
or
Force Ghost.
Force Ghost. True.
I hope it's Force Ghost because you saw Sebastian Shaw morph into morph into Hayden Christensen. In Star Wars releases after 2002.
Yeah.
I hope it's that. How cool would that be?
I mean, it would be cool. I'm not even going to qualify that. It would be cool. The thing that I loved about the Hayden stuff you got in Ahsoka season 1 is that the version that you saw there was like the Anakin at the height of his powers, which we never really saw before. The Anakin at the height of his powers, who was still a good guy, who had yet to actually descend um, into madness and evil and the dark side, and that was kind of exciting. It's the path that you never saw taken, and so to go to the other side of that, where that character, granted, flashback, he's not really interacting with Ahsoka. Force Ghost, he's not really, he's only talking to her. He's not moving the drama really. He becomes a mentor at best who can just say things to her. But yeah, to have the two of them on a stage together, fucking having scenes would be great.
I love what we got flashback wise in Kenobi with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I even love, like, in a weird way, that Hayden Christensen was Anakin Skywalker. I mean, I know Jake Lloyd also, but Hayden Christensen was Anakin Skywalker. And then he did 2.5 hours of Anakin. And then Matt Lanter picked it up and for a decade was Anakin. And then Matt had to study Hayden, who then Hayden came back and had to study Matt because Hayden had to play the Matt Lanter version of Anakin Skywalker for Ahsoka. Like, that's kind of cool, right? But also, like, at what point does that not be cool anymore? And you're just like, okay, you're de-aging him again.
Right. Yeah. Like it would be nice if the snake wasn't eating its own tail all the time. And that's what Force Ghost gives you. It gives you actually like Hayden playing Anakin at the age Anakin would have been.
Mm-hmm.
Because probably Hayden at this point is late 40s, right?
He's
Like,
my age, 44.
44, which probably is about how old Darth Vader was when he died.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe, like he would have had, Luke and Leia as a younger man. 20 years of fucking with the galaxy until he falls prey to lightning hands. Like that dude's probably mid 40s and not 60s as Sebastian Shaw is.
Yeah.
And like you can just have Hayden unde-aged, just a guy, and make it feel right. And make those choices different, I think, than the Hayden being Matt Lanter, being Anakin, being
Mm-hmm.
Anakin. Um, I think that gives you opportunity, and I think that's at this point what I want is like a newer version of an old thing, and not the cover band version of the thing again and again and again.
At this point, I just want a season of Ahsoka that I can get through.
Also would be great. Also would be great. So yeah, Ahsoka season 2 is in production, happening. They teased, I think they showed some footage of Mando Grogu, which again we will never see until they're ready for us to see it, because if anybody's good at erasing leaked shit from the internet, it's Disney. And they clamp down hard very quickly. Um, I think the third season of Star Wars Visions is called The Ninth Jedi, which is apparently about the adventures of Kara and Juno, who first appeared in The Ninth Jedi, I think, which was a season 1 short, and
Mm-hmm.
then Child of Hope, which was a season 2 short. And so now season 3 is apparently all about um, those two characters.
Did you watch Visions?
I watched the first season. I The second season has dropped already, right? Or
Yeah,
no?
it has. I have not seen the second season.
Neither have I. I appreciated it, you know, in that it did let you tell small stories. Um, some of them were a little too small, I think, for me. And not that again everything needs to dovetail around to shit that I know, but I thought um the young wow, god damn it, what's his name again? The Christopher Lee character.
Oh,
Why can't
Dooku.
Dooku? There it is. I kept wanting to say Snoke, and I knew it wasn't Snoke, but like young Dooku, um, as a Padawan. Um, I thought that was just super interesting. Like before he turned, I was like, oh,
Is
that's
that
kind of
Visions, or are you thinking Tales of the Jedi?
that Tales of the Jedi.
That's Tales of the Jedi. Visions was the like kind of Japanese inspired.
Yeah, I guess I'm blending the short form animation stuff, I guess, in my brain. I thought the Dooku one was pretty cool, but yeah, there were a couple of the visions that I thought were fascinating. Um, because I do love that Star Wars has always opened itself up to interpretation, and so for Lucasfilm to just engage, like, hey, anime guys, go to town, whatever you want to do, whether it whether it plays by our rules or not, whether it completely deviates wildly, go for it. I thought that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, Vision is one of those things where I loved and appreciated it, but did not like it. Like, was
Fair.
not for me, you know? But I'm like, how cool that you opened it up for people to do the thing, right?
Yeah, come and play in Star Wars. I think is a super cool thing. Like I always appreciated that Lucasfilm never shit on or cease and desisted the fan film community. They're always like, hey, listen, as long as you don't sell this, as long as you make no money on it, you can make a fan film. You can use all of the IP. Just it's out of love. It's not for profit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the other studios have 100% shut down shit like that. Paramount, I think, went hard on a lot of Star Trek fan
Yeah.
films. But Lucas was always like, dude, let them play.
Mm-hmm.
They're the reasons why we're still here. So why yuck anybody's yum? Let them go to town. Um, was there any other celebration stuff that I've missed in my?
Like a bunch of like toy news and things like that, but nothing that was like earth shattering.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's the Star Wars section of tonight's we episode of Fat Man Beyond. There's a couple little news things that creep through that we can just hit really quickly before we go to if there's any Q&A to be queued.
I got some. I got some cues.
We got some cues. Um, we had talked, I guess, about a month ago about a Sergeant Rock movie that was coming from Warner Brothers and DC Films, directed by Luca Guadagnino, um, queer and Call Me by Your Name, um, with Colin Farrell to star as Sergeant Rock. It was supposed to start shooting like this summer. It has now been put on hold, um, perhaps indefinitely. Um, Apparently it shoot next summer. Apparently the script was in great shape, but nobody's quite sure why. Um, the powers that be pulled the plug. Farrell was sort of committed to star. The Challengers co-star Mike Feist was on board the cast. Alien Romulus breakout. David Johnson was apparently set to join the cast. Um, yeah, it's unclear why, unless somebody just asked the question, do we want a Sergeant Rock movie? Like is there a clamoring for this of all of the DC stuff we should be, fast tracking into production? Is a World War II version of the DC universe a thing that we want? Um, Even if the script is great, even if the director's great, even if the cast is great, um, perhaps somebody on the bean counter side of things was like, why? And the answer is we don't know. So sorry if you were looking forward to it. Alas, it is not sure if it's going to happen. There is a live action, however, Pacific Rim TV series coming. The reason why I find this noteworthy, not the least of which is that I quite like Pacific Rim. It is a Daffy movie that I find incredibly endearing. Most of the reason for that is, I love Guillermo del Toro. I love giant robots. I love kaiju. So if you're giving me those three things, then I have little to complain about. But the creative force behind this is Eric Heiser, who was the showrunner on Shadow and Bone for Netflix, and most importantly, Oscar nominated for writing Arrival. Um, I think that whatever that dude does is worth looking at, and if that dude wants to do giant robots punching giant monsters, I am here for it. Um, Apparently, it's going to be on Prime Video, Amazon MGM Studios, Legendary. They're all doing the jammy jam. I keep wishing that Legendary, who also has the rights to the Godzilla MonsterVerse or the Monarch universe, would just fucking do the thing, which I now want, which is Pacific Rim. I want Gypsy Danger punching Godzilla in the face, and the fact that we don't have this already is somewhat mystifying to me.
That's how I
But
feel about Fast and Furious and Transformers.
like guys, just do it. Just do it. What do we? Why are we not doing it? Um, you're running out of compelling reasons for this not to happen. So just kind of make it happen. So that's the reason why I find that interesting, and potentially a reason to, as Kevin likes to say, stay alive for another couple more years. Is that we might get a Pacific Rim TV show. That's kind of all I got news wise. It's been a little bit scant as of late, other than the entirety of the Sinners coverage. Like if you go on Instagram Reels or TikTok, you will see a level of scholarship about that film that is somewhat awe-inspiring. Um, uh, yeah, and then the Star Wars Celebration stuff was pretty big. But that's about it. That's the end of our news. That's it. We went as promised, incredibly deep into the Star Wars weeds. But you know what? You know who lives in the Star Wars weeds? Yoda. We found him in there. We found some joy in there. And so we'll keep watching Andor. Hopefully we'll get Kev back in the next couple of weeks. Maybe he will too have seen the Andor and can chat with him about the finale when it comes around. But yeah, if we got some A's to cue, let's cue some A's.
All right, let's see. Uh, from Gloose, they wanted to know if you were to cast the late great David Bowie as a comic book character, who would it have been?
Um, it seems as if, at least in the pages of Mike Carey's version of Lucifer, they had very
Hmm.
much Lucifer after David Bowie. Um, seems a little bit on the nose, I think, given that it was clearly a, you know, what if Nick Fury looked like Sam Jackson kind of thing. Um, I think instead, David Bowie as long shot, um,
Ooh.
the luckiest mutant, um, I think would have been cool. I think that character was always a little bit of a puck and a pixie, um, but also with some real steel to him. I think would be interesting. But I mean, David Bowie is the quintessential should have been a comic book character. Like he could have been he could have been Fade in Dune before Sting. He was the proto Sting, the most beautiful man in the world, basically. I mean, he could have been Adam Warlock. He could have been Sandman. Um, there's a lot of ways you could have gone with Bowie. I mean, Bowie as the Joker would have been kind of phenomenal. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, Bowie was so multifaceted, it wouldn't be hard to just like he could have done that. He could have been Hawkeye. Sure. Why not?
My
But sure.
I went to, and this doesn't even exist, but it kind of exists. Monstar from Silverhawks. If you were to do a live action Silverhawks and cast Monstar, who's basically Mumra in space,
That
I feel like Bowie would have crushed that.
would have been cool. Somebody in chat said John Constantine, which also, yeah, kind of a no-brainer. Um, yeah, no, fucking all of these are good choices. And Bowie would have been amazing in a comic book movie.
Let's see. Let's do if you could cast. This is Andy McGuire. If you could cast the parody version of Justice League, a Justice League movie, which comedic actors would you cast?
All right, so which characters are we talking about? We're talking about Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Martian Manhunter.
Martian Manhunter.
Um, all right, let me write this down so I make sure that I got it. Bats, Supes, Wonder Woman, Flash. Um, it's hard not to cast Dietrich Bader as Batman.
Oh yeah.
That seems kind of perfect. Um, Superman. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I know he's controversial and like kind of a douche, but Matt Rife like
yeah, he's got the
looks the
jaw.
part. He's got the jaw, and the
He's got
hair.
the. I mean, part of me was like, if we can be somewhat temporally fluid with this, then like young Bill Murray is actually kind of great as Superman. Um, let's see, Wonder Woman. Mm, the Temptation is Sarah Silverman, but that's not quite right. Um, but again, if we could be temporally fluid, then like yes, you can have somewhat of a younger Sarah Silverman as Wonder Woman, which I would roll with. Um, the Flash, I really want Bill Hader as the Flash.
Oh, he'd be good.
Um,
Also, like Robin Williams, in the same way he did like Genie, where he'd be like, "Hey, I'm over here. Now I'm over here. Now I'm over here. Whoa, I'm behind you. Hey, I'm in the future. I am in the past." Could be the most annoying Flash that ever was.
100%, 100%. Um, in the same, a little controversial, but probably still right. Dave Chappelle as the Martian Manhunter would be kind of great. Um, and then Green Lantern. Um, I mean, honestly, fucking Will Smith, like young Will Smith as John Stewart, Green Lantern, um, seems kind of cut out for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think that is my parody Justice League. I think Wonder Woman's a little thin. Um, I'd have to think on that. But otherwise, yeah, I think that holds. I think that holds.
Be funny.
It would I would watch the shit out of it. I would watch the shit out of it.
Somebody says have Jim Henson direct it. Yes.
No. If we are not bound by time and space, or hell, we can still get Mel Brooks out there to do it. He's still kicking,
Oh my God, yeah.
98 years old.
Crazy. All right, last one. Jacob Kim said, what character or time in Star Wars would you like to see Gilroy do another series of? Then he says, give him Jar Jar. He could make that work. I've got a whole Jar Jar backstory that I want to tell, so I'm not going to talk about it now.
Don't give it
We'll
away.
be here all night.
Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
Yeah.
I mean, like the thing that I love about what and when Gilroy is telling his story, like as much as I was a little weary of the like Andor on the surface of Yavin, which you don't know what's Yavin until the very end when you see the pyramids, or the ziggurats in the distance. Like it feels a bit honestly like you know uh like an old Clint Eastwood Western. I think it's like Yojimbo or whatever, where it's the samurai who's caught between two warring factions who's got to kind of play one against the other to look for opportunities to escape. What I liked about that was that it seems to be we're in a version of the rebellion that is still in disarray, in that both of those factions thought they were part of the rebel alliance, although there was no single person to be the figurehead of it. There was nobody keeping everybody in line, because like Saul Guerrero doesn't want to get off his ass, and Luthen still has to be in the shadows, and Mon Mothma still has to be a senator, and there is no person who is just I'm the general of the fucking Rebel Alliance, which I think was ultimately the point of that, which was it's still chaos. It's well-meaning chaos, but nobody trusts each other because nobody knows who's to follow. Um, I don't know if there's another time in Star Wars that is quite as fraught that way. Maybe it's the immediate aftermath of like Order 66, right? When like everything is chaos, like what they thought was the power structure, what they thought was, the last line of defense is gone. And so that immediate power vacuum, or the safety vacuum of the Jedi being exterminated, is an interesting time. I don't know how much elasticity you have to that time. I don't know, if like in the way that Andor is telling you like a 4-year story leading up to Rogue One. I don't know what the bookends are of just before Order 66, and then at what point it has not been filled in yet by canon. So, but I think that kind of apocalypse, um, is interesting. Especially because there's chaos breeds opportunity, and who benefits from the immediate eradication of the Jedi.
Um, in that exact same vein, in that exact same type of chaos, but at a more micro level than the macro level of the galaxy. I would. I'm gonna sound like such a dick, but I would go back and give him Book of Boba Fett.
Do it again.
Redo Book of Boba Fett. because
But this one didn't happen.
it's the same idea, right? But localized to Tatooine. And I think you could do a lot of really interesting stuff with Boba Fett and the Tuskens, which was the best part of the show. But then it kind of like meandered and didn't really know what it was doing, and it got goofy. I think he could really like anchor that with like some good like slow burn moisture farmer stuff. Like get into the like make the owner of the cantina a central character in that town kind of thing. Like he's just so good with character. I think that like you could really explore book the aftermath of the death of Jabba the Hutt. But then I think the other one would be, which because that's kind of like not a fair answer. We're getting Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see him do Grand Admiral Thrawn at the point that Grand Admiral Thrawn learns that the Emperor has been killed. And because I don't... having read a lot of Grand Admiral Thrawn over the past 30 years, multiple times, I'm just not so sure he's captured quite the same way in Rebels and Ahsoka that he was in the books, in terms of like the way he was written in the books was very... he was 2 steps ahead of you and you were trying to catch up to him as the reader. Whereas I feel like in the TV shows, it's been more like he dictates to you what he did off screen, or the way that you are 2 steps behind Indiana Jones in like Raiders of the Lost Ark or Last Crusade, versus the way that Indiana Jones just expositionally tells you what's happening in Crystal Skull.
Right.
I feel like there's a little bit of that dynamic, and I think Gilroy could really crush the Grand Admiral Thrawn is playing 3D checkers while everybody else, or 3D chess while everybody else is playing checkers, out in the outer unknown regions, doing his thing, but the entire time working his way back into the grander plan, which you could then put into Ahsoka, and Gilroy would have the opportunity to do what Dave Filoni always does, which is to make the things around him better by the long form story he's telling.
Okay. I dig it. I dig it. Although it's funny, like summoning the Book of Boba Fett. I don't even remember why I was thinking about this the other day. But just the I remember feeling it when Book of Boba Fett first aired. Be like, wouldn't Boba Fett be like hot to kill the dude who sentenced him to an eternity inside a Sarlacc pit? Why is he not trying to kill Han Solo? Why is that not what's burning him up inside, and not, can I take over this one horse village and maybe be the manager of a small Starbucks of crime on the Outer Rim? Like, if he was the fucking man, then like, let's go. Like, let's get our shit back. Like, it's a revenge story. It's John Wick, right?
Yeah.
And to dig into that story, into the sort of hollowness of revenge, and how it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's an all-consuming moral quest in which you slowly barter your humanity for what feels like a momentary indulgence of pleasure. I think there's a lot of meat on those bones, and I just never understood, other than maybe budgetarily, why the decision was, let's just do this instead. Let's have him want to be middle management. Let's have him want to hold meetings a lot.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it felt like a little bit of a troll of the fans. Like we talked about Sam earlier, and Sam again talks about Star Wars Episode 1 in that like how ballsy of George Lucas to be like, I am going to tell you the story of Darth Vader, the baddest villain there ever was. And it begins when he's an 8-year-old boy and says, Wahoo, yippee, and wizard. And you're going to have to sit through it. Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm going to gamble $200 million of my own money on it. Like, there's a level, like you were talking about, George has always been like the maverick kind of like renegade filmmaker up in San Francisco. Like, that's really reflected in the choice of where he decided to start episode 1, you know? I got that same vibe from Boba Fett, where it's like, he's the baddest bounty hunter in the galaxy. What if he wasn't a bounty hunter after the first 8 minutes of episode 1? What if he wanted to be like a benevolent crime boss who really doesn't want to hurt people's feelings too much?
Like, he just wants to open like a frozen yogurt franchise. Like, that's all he really wants.
Yeah. I just want Tatooine. I just want Tatooine to be easy for everybody.
I just want
that's what you want.
Governing sort of district, I think maybe. I'm gonna go take a bath, and then we'll figure this out. Like a little crusty old man who just like, all right, we're gonna have some conversations. Then I'm gonna go take a schwitz, and then we're gonna come back and do some more conversations, and then maybe I'll shoot a guy.
I mean, that's the only explanation for Boba Fett is just like, they were like, everybody loves that dude so much. He's got such a mythic backstory. There's 1,000 books and 1 million toys written about him. What if we made him suck? What if we just went hard in the other direction?
Yeah. And like, it'll never do the thing, because like we talked about, like the balls of George's major project, which is the creation and redemption of the villain, now exists in a way that if you come to it as a layperson, you're going to watch it episode 1 through episode 9. Maybe stop at 6. We'll see if you keep going. But like, that story is incredibly unconventional. You would never today greenlight that story. Unless you were making the largest independent film series ever made. And it is crazily ambitious and trusting an audience that maybe he shouldn't have trusted, even though it all paid off. It all made its money back, but it did sour him on Star Wars by the end of it, to the point where he sold the company. I'm never making another Star Wars. Like, what's the point? They're just going to hate it anyway. But yeah, I don't know if the Boba Fett can support that level of ambition.
No, but that's what it felt like.
I know. Like, I know you want this. Fuck you. You're gonna get this. Okay.
Yeah. It didn't. You're like, he rides a Rancor. I mean, that's neat in isolation, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess his fucking jetpack works once or twice. But okay.
There was a great episode of The Mandalorian buried in that season, though.
There were like 2 or 3, right? It was like there's 2.5 episodes of Mando. Just like, is this Boba Fett working out? No? All right, just cut to the other show. Oh, okay. We're flipping channels in the middle of Boba Fett. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, man, I think that's an episode of Fat Man Beyond. I think we went deep on Andor and our love for Star Wars. We talked about Star Wars news at a celebration. We had a couple little baby news items. We did some Q&A. I'm not sure if there's any more show left in the tank, man. I think we hit it.
It feels pretty good. And I don't think anybody hated. I think we had a relatively civilized chat for talking about the most controversial thing on the planet, Star Wars.
Indeed. Including the I don't want my science fiction to be political. I want it to just wash over me like a gentle bath. Except science
Hey,
fiction.
speaking of, I finally saw in 4DX the trailer for Tron Ares.
Mm-hmm.
That looks cool. That looks like the best Tron movie that they've ever made.
I mean, like the two things that got me excited were it turns out I'm a sucker for Jeff Bridges. And like his continuing fidelity to that franchise over the course of like 40 years is kind of amazing to me. So the minute I hear his voice, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, we got that. And also the appeal is no longer can I get into the grid? You know what I mean? Like, and I think they might have discovered that nobody gives a shit about being inside the grid. It's now what happens when the grid comes outside of it and into the real world. And if that's the movie, which it
Yeah.
seems is, then suddenly I'm way more interested than another like trip into the virtual landscape invented in the 80s by people who had no idea what the internet was. Like, what if it's this? What if this is the inside of video games, you guys? They're actually gladiator games. I mean, okay, sure. It didn't really hold today, but
Put a
what?
light cycle on the Golden Gate Bridge, and
Cars in
I
that?
will get in line.
Yeah, yeah, kind of here for it. Um, and for and you tell me the score is by Nine Inch Nails. Like it's the little things, which is
Mm-hmm.
like 9 Inch fucking Nails is back. Like I've seen a lot of Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross scores, but if it's 9 Inch fucking Nails, all right,
Yep.
here for it.
Yep. All we have to do is figure out how to sit through 2 hours of Jared Leto, and
You
everything
know,
else will take care of itself.
I'm hoping that they use him like you would use Graza olive oil, gently with intention and purpose. It is not a lot of it. You don't need a lot of it. You just need the right amount for the dish you're cooking. And maybe you only need a little bit of Jared Leto to go a very long
Yeah. Yeah.
way. Fingers crossed. Um, but yeah, I'm currently right now excited to see Thunderbolts. I cannot fucking wait for Mission Impossible, the final cruising. I want to see just how much he runs in this very last Ethan Hunt adventure. And waiting for more Andor. That is what is fixating my pop culture mind right now. More of that. More of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know when next we will gather for a thing to talk about. I'm not sure if we'll have Kevin or not. Maybe we'll try and wait for a window in his touring schedule and see if he can pop on and tell us how it's going out there in the wild world of people in seats, listening to Q&As and fixating on the return of the OG, the Dogma. Love to hear a report from the road. But until then, until whatever version we return in, this has been Fat Man Beyond for this week. My name is Marc Bernardin.
I'm JC Reifenberg, BAMF man.
BAMF man. If you're in LA, go to Scum and Villainy on May the 4th. Enjoy your
no place like it on May the 4th.
no place like it in the world, anywhere, ever, but especially on May the 4th. So plan your pilgrimage. I would like to say that I knew when next Kevin and I were going to be recording there, but I don't. If I had to make a guess, it's like June, perhaps. We'll get him back in LA, back in a relatively safe state, and get behind the bar one more time.
Oh yeah.
But yes, but until then, this has been Fat Man Beyond. We will be back as soon as we can. Same fat time, same fat channel. Smodcast.com or youtube.com/Kevin Smith. Thank you for playing the home game with us, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, he, she's, theys, and thems. And we'll see you when we see you. Jeff's kiss.
This is the cat. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the AKA Ask Kev Anything. Every saga has a 10-year anniversary, ladies and gentlemen, and this is what happens when Jay and Silent Bob get old.